Miss Montgomery O'Neill, welcome and good morning. If you'll come forward to be sworn wherever you're comfortable, if you'll face me and raise your right hand, please. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm any testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you, ma'am. If you'll follow the bailiff to the ramp that leads up to the witness chair, please watch your step. Go ahead, have a seat in that chair, make yourself comfortable. That microphone is fully adjustable, and it is on.
State your name for the record.
My name is Francesca Loren O'Neill, last name spelled O''Neal.
And ma'am, where are you employed?
I'm employed with FDLE, which stands for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, within the Tampa Bay Regional Operations Center Biology Section.
How long have you been with FDLE?
I've been with FDLE for 11 years.
And how did you begin your role with them?
I was first employed as a forensic technologist for approximately 3 years, and then was promoted to crime laboratory analyst, and have been a crime laboratory analyst since.
And you said that was in the biology section?
Yes, it is.
What type of education have you received to ultimately become an analyst in the biology section?
I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in biology from the University of Tampa, and a Master's of Science degree in pharmacy with a concentration in forensic serology and DNA from the University of Florida.
Do you also take any training courses while employed with FDLE?
Yes, I was first trained as a forensic technologist at FDLE, and then I completed a training program within the biology section as a crime laboratory analyst.
Do you have to maintain any type of continuing education courses or training in order to be a crime laboratory analyst?
Yes, I complete a minimum of 8 hours of continuing education every year.
And are you up to date on that?
Yes, I am.
Do you have to partake in proficiency tests?
Yes, I do.
And what are those?
A proficiency test is a test that we receive from an external agency. It supplies mock evidence samples in a mock scenario, and I treat it as if it's any normal case that we receive. I will report out my results. It's a pass or fail test, and the answers to that test are not made available to myself or my supervisor.
And have you had any proficiency tests that you were not able to pass?
No, I haven't. I'm required to take 2 proficiency tests per year.
Can you please explain what forensic biology is?
Forensic biology is the application of science to obtain facts in relation to criminal cases, with it being biology that's looking at the identification of body fluids such as blood, semen, and saliva, as well as DNA testing, so obtaining DNA profiles from evidence samples and comparing those DNA profiles to DNA profiles from known individuals related to a case.
Now, the lab, FDLE, the lab itself, is it accredited?
Yes, it is.
And what is the significance of that?
Accreditation is when an external body comes in and examines a laboratory for all things regarding quality, and this is to make sure that we are maintaining a certain level of quality and reliability with our results.
And have you ever testified in courts here in Hillsborough County as an expert witness in DNA or biology analysis?
Yes, I have.
Do you know about how many times?
Approximately 12 times.
Your Honor, the state will tender the witness.
Mr. Summers, do you have any questions of the witness related to the qualifications?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may proceed.
So, Ms. O'Neill, can you please explain to the jury what DNA is and what it is that you are looking for in your analysis of evidence?
DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. It's the genetic material that's found in almost all of our cells. We inherited it from our parents, so we inherit 50% from our mother, 50% from our father. As humans, 99% of our DNA is the same, so it gives us 2 eyes, 2 hands, etc. Within that 1% that makes us different from person to person, I'm looking at what's called STRs. That stands for short tandem repeats. These are areas in that 1% that are very different from person to person. The areas repeat themselves a certain amount of times, and that certain amount of times is what's inherited, and that's what I'm looking at when I develop a DNA profile.
Now, is the STR testing that you are using accepted in the forensic scientific community?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then the DNA tests that are used by FDLE, are those validated?
Yes, they are.
How do you know that ultimately when you're doing this analysis and you're using STR, that you're ultimately getting the correct result?
When I take evidence samples through the STR DNA process, I'll also include controls. There's a positive control and a negative control. The positive control contains a known DNA profile. So at the end of my process, I should only obtain that known DNA profile in that sample. And the negative control does not contain any DNA. So at the end of that process, there should be no DNA results obtained in that sample.
Can you please explain what serology is?
Serology is the identification of body fluids such as blood, semen, and saliva.
And is serology something that is standard for you to do when you are analyzing evidence for DNA?
Yes, it is.
Now, in regards to statistics, have you had specialized training or classes?
Yes, I did. Have.
And is that from your undergrad education or what you received at FDLE?
It's from both. I've taken undergrad and graduate courses in statistics, as well as part of the FDLE training program. I obtained training in population genetics.
So in 2017, when you were employed with FDLE, what statistic databases were you using?
The database that we use was published in the Forensic Science International Genetics Journal in 2013.
And is that database, or was that database peer reviewed?
Yes, it was.
Are you still using that same database now in 2022?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And is it still peer reviewed?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, how is it that the DNA profiles are obtained and placed into that database?
In this database, it is a collection of approximately 1,000 DNA profiles. That information came from blood samples and vocal swabs from Florida, Ohio, and Tennessee.
Are you aware if the samples in that database have been reviewed by a population's geneticist?
Yes, it has.
Okay. And then are you aware if there were any errors with that database?
Yes. In 2017, the database was revised due to errors.
Do you recall when that was?
In 2017.
Okay. In specifically the case in which we are here today, you examined evidence in March of 2017 through August of 2017. Did the error in that database affect any of your results?
Yes, it did. One of the tools that we used to calculate statistics had an error in it. So then once that tool was revised, those statistics were recalculated.
And you did that in this case?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, what statistical equations are you using in 2017?
In 2017, we transitioned from using random match probability, or RMP, statistics to likelihood ratios.
And what is the difference between the two?
RMP is calculating the rarity of a DNA profile, so how likely I'm to expect it within a population. And a likelihood ratio is the comparison of two different statistics, so it's looking at the probability of the evidence or the DNA profile based on if it originated from a person of interest versus a unknown, unrelated individual within that population.
So turning to the evidence in which you analyzed in this case, how is it that evidence is obtained by you at FDLE?
Every case that comes in is submitted from a law enforcement agency. It receives a unique FDLE case number, and all of the items within that case receive a unique FDLE item number. The agency gives it a case scenario, so then I receive a case tracking form with that evidence that gives that scenario and a list of that evidence. Then that case is randomly assigned to me by my supervisor, and then I will obtain those items of evidence from the vault. This all happens through electronic chain of custody tracking. So an individual that has access to the vault will transfer that evidence from the vault to themselves and then to me, and then I will place that evidence into my own personal locker.
When you receive the evidence, is it sealed?
Yes, it is.
When you're analyzing evidence, are you taking any precautions to prevent cross-contamination?
Yes, I am.
What are you doing?
There are various things that I will do. One thing is cleaning the work area and utensils that I'm going to use. I wear a lab coat and a face mask, and depending on the type of evidence, I may also wear a hairnet. I will only open one item of evidence at a time, change my gloves as necessary, and then I'll also clean the work area between items of evidence.
Are you aware if there was any cross-contamination of your analysis of the evidence in this case?
No, I'm not.
On May 3rd of 2017, you authored a report for evidence that you received on April 5th of 2017. What items of evidence did you receive on April 5th of 2017?
I received a sexual assault evidence kit that was collected from Alyssa Ann Summers. Within that kit were vaginal swabs, cervical swabs, external genitalia swabs, right hand fingernail scrapings, left hand fingernail scrapings, buccal swabs, and underwear.
On May 3rd of 2017, you received additional evidence. What was that?
Yes, I received a cutting from a sheet, swabs from front driver's seat, underwear, and swabs from a t-shirt, and cutting from a pair of pants.
And then lastly, on August 10th of 2017, what evidence did you receive?
I received buccal swabs from Trevor Summers.
Mayor, first witness.
May.
Ms. O'Neill, I'm showing you what's been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit K. Have you had an opportunity to review that item of evidence?
Yes, I have.
And is that the sexual assault kit that you received in April of 2017 to analyze?
Yes, it is.
And does it contain the specific or unique FDLE number that you indicated would be assigned to this case?
Yes, it does.
And is that indicated on the yellow sticker that's on the outside of that envelope?
Yes, it is.
And I'm showing you what's been introduced as State's Exhibit N. Have you had an opportunity to review that prior to today?
Yes, I did.
And how do you recognize that?
I recognize it by the yellow FDLE barcode that has the unique FDLE case number, as well as in my own handwriting, the FDLE case number, the date that I opened it, as well as the item number from the agency.
And then State's Exhibit L, Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
And how do you recognize it?
I recognize it by the FDLE barcode, as well as in my own handwriting, the FDLE case number, the date that I opened it, my initials, and the agency item number.
And then lastly, what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit M, do you recognize this item of evidence?
Yes, I do.
And how do you recognize it?
By the FDLE barcode, as well as in my own initials, own handwriting, the FDLE case number, the date that I opened it, my initials, and the agency item number.
And the item of evidence for State's Exhibit M, is that the driver's seat swab that you received in May of 2017?
Yes, it is.
And is it in the same or substantially same condition as when you received it and analyzed it?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, the State would move into evidence State's Exhibit M.
Any objection?
No objection.
And will be admitted.
May I publish?
You may publish to the jury.
So, Ms. O'Neill, within State's Exhibit K, there were numerous envelopes, and I'll start with one that is labeled right hand fingernail scrapings. Is there any identifying marks on this envelope from when you analyzed it?
Yes, in the left top corner, in my own handwriting, I wrote the FDLE case number, the date that I opened it, my initials, and the agency item number, as well as you see right hand fingernail scrapings is the description of the item.
And would that be here on the top left in between the red tape and the words right hand fingernail scrapings?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And additionally, there was left hand fingernail scrapings, swabs of possible saliva, possible semen from external genitalia, the buccal standard, the vaginal swabs, the cervical swabs, the underwear, and this we are looking at is on this paper is written apparent hairs from underwear. Can you explain that?
Yes, when I examined the underwear, I observed what looks as hairs, possible hairs. I collect those and place those in a debris fold, and that's the debris fold.
What were your results? Well, let me ask you this. What analysis did you do regarding these swabs?
In the STR DNA process, the first process is taking a cutting and running that through extraction, that is using heat and chemicals to pull the DNA from the sample away from other cellular material, debris, etc. After extraction is quantitation, so that's counting how much DNA is within that sample. We look at both total amount of quantifiable DNA as well as male DNA, and then we use that based off of a threshold. So if we have a certain amount of male DNA, or if we have a certain ratio between total amount of DNA and male DNA, we will continue down the DNA pathway. However, if that amount of male DNA or that ratio don't meet that threshold, then we will stop at that point. For the majority of the items in this case, were not meeting that threshold, so then they stopped at quantitation due to not having sufficient amount of male DNA present in the sample.
Looking at State's Exhibit L, and this is a cutting from a sheet, and inside the envelope was a piece of paper. And again, do you have your specific FDLE number, handwriting on the top left corner of this folded paper?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And inside the folded paper is a piece of fabric, and in the middle part of that fabric appears to be a hole from a cutting. Is that a piece of fabric that you took from this cutting to conduct your analysis?
Yes, that's correct.
And did you perform the same type of analysis on this cutting as you just described with the swabs from the sexual assault kit?
Yes, I did.
And what were your results in regards to the cutting from the sheet?
For the cutting from the sheet, I obtained a DNA mixture.
What does that mean?
When looking at DNA profiles, if it is a profile that looks like it's coming from one donor, that's a single source profile. And then if it looks like there's multiple people, so 2 or more individuals contributing DNA to that profile, it's considered a mixed DNA profile or mixture.
And in this case, regarding the cutting from the sheet in State's Exhibit L, were you able to ascertain whether those profiles were, or the mixtures, were male or female?
Yes, I was.
Can you please explain which or what you were able to find?
Yes, I was able to assume that there were 2 contributors to that mixture. For the major DNA profile, meaning the DNA profile that was contributing the most to that mixture, was from a female origin, and the minor DNA profile, the profile contributing the lower amount, was from a male origin.
Now, turning your attention to State's Exhibit M, which is the swab from the driver's seat. And on this, again, we have appears to be your handwriting in the top left corner area of the paper that indicates the FDLE lab number.
Yes, that's correct.
And inside of this, there appears to be 2 Q-tips. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Is this how you would have received it from law enforcement, the Q-tips inside of this little envelope?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you use both of the Q-tips or just one?
I just take a cutting of one of the swabs.
Is there 2 usually included just in case?
Sometimes there are 2, sometimes there's only 1.
Okay. And in regards to this swab, did you conduct the same analysis as you've already described?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And were you able to ascertain any information from that analysis?
Yes, I was able to obtain a mixed DNA profile.
And were you able to ascertain if there was a major or minor contributor?
Yes, for this mixture, I was able to obtain a major that came from male origin.
Now, in regards to the swab from the shirt, the cutting from the pants, and the cutting from the underwear, were you able to identify any foreign DNA?
No, I did not.
Is there a reason why you may not be able to find or see foreign DNA when doing this type of analysis?
There are a few different considerations. One of those would be that if it is a sample that's coming directly from an individual or or coming from an item that was in direct contact with an individual. So in this case, underwear, pants, clothing was in direct contact with an individual. They can be contributing a lot of their DNA to that item. And if there were to be any other DNA profiles that are foreign to that individual, they can be contributing in a smaller amount. Therefore, at the end, the DNA profile that's shown is from that individual because there's so much there that they're masking anything lower than them.
Can a male having a vasectomy affect the threshold that you have described that would prevent from seeing any foreign male DNA?
Yes, that's possible. However, the type of serology testing that we perform can still give positive semen results even though a vasectomy occurred.
So in regards to the sexual assault kit, going back to that, when you said that it failed to meet the threshold, the quantification standards, could that have possibly been from the male donor having had a vasectomy?
I would say that there's still DNA within semen. It doesn't just come from sperm cells, so you can still have male DNA available in that sample.
Is it fair to say that you would not be able to see the sperm in regards to when you do serology?
Correct. For serology, for semen, there's 3 different types of testing. The first one looks at a protein within semen. If that gives a positive result, then we will move on to a sperm search. If a vasectomy occurred, we will typically not see sperm cells within that sperm microscope search. Then the third step would be if we had the first give a positive, the second, the sperm cell search give a negative result. The third one is another protein that we look at that's found within semen. So then that first and that third protein are still available within semen after a vasectomy. And if both of those 2 tests give a positive result, that is a positive result for semen being present.
And in this case, did you have to do any of those additional serology tests?
Yes, I did.
On which items?
May I refer to my notes?
Yes. Do you have a report or notes that you had generated when doing your analysis?
Yes, I do.
And would that help refresh your memory?
Yes, it would.
If you could, you can review it, but look up after you are done reviewing it.
Yes. Yes, the type of serology was done on the cutting from the sheet as well as the cutting from the pants, all 3 of those semen serology tests.
Okay. Now, turning your attention to State's Exhibit N, which was identified or labeled as the buccal swab of Trevor Summers. Is this how you received it in this envelope?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and the specific FDLE case number and your signature, is that kind of more towards the center of this envelope?
Yes, it is.
And then inside, again, we have a smaller envelope with Q-tips, and that also contains the FDLE number and your signature.
Yes, that's
Initials.
correct.
Okay. Were you able to compare the buccal swab of Trevor Summers to any of the swabs that you conducted an analysis of?
Yes, I did.
And what was that, or were those?
I compared to the DNA profiles obtained from the cutting from sheet and the swabs from front driver's seat.
And what were your results regarding the driver's seat swab?
For the driver's seat swab, I obtained that major male DNA profile and concluded that that was a match between that major male DNA profile and the DNA profile from Trevor Summers.
And what was the statistical result that you were able to come up with?
May I refer to my notes?
Yes.
The observed major DNA profile is greater than 700 billion times more likely to occur if the sample originated from Trevor Summers than from an unrelated unknown individual.
Why 700 billion?
The actual statistic is higher than that, but for reporting purposes, we cap any statistic at 700 billion because that number is a bit more understandable to most, I would say, because the population of the Earth is approximately 7 billion, so 700 billion is 100 times that. So it's just not putting numbers way higher than that in the report, keeping it simplified.
And what were your results when you compared the buccal swab of Trevor Summers to the cutting from the sheet?
For the cutting of the sheet, I obtained that minor male DNA profile from that mixture. I compared it to the DNA profile from Trevor Summers and concluded that that was also a match.
Now, in regards to law enforcement submitting evidence to FDLE, is there a policy that FDLE has regarding that?
Yes, FDLE has an evidence submission policy.
Is that submitted to law enforcement agencies throughout the state of Florida?
Yes, it is.
And specifically with that policy, if law enforcement has a case involving a sexual battery, what would they submit to FDLE first?
Within the first submission for a sexual battery case, they would submit a sexual assault evidence kit, underwear from the victim, and a condom from that case.
And in this case, because those swabs failed to provide sufficient amount of foreign DNA, were additional items of evidence requested from law enforcement?
Yes, there were.
If, on the other hand, you had found a sufficient amount of DNA for comparison, would law enforcement be able to submit additional items of evidence?
They would not be able to automatically, but if the scenario deems it, they would talk to a biology supervisor for an exception to submit that evidence.
So in this case, because the sexual assault kit failed to demonstrate a sufficient amount, they were then able to submit those items of evidence that you received in May of 2017?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, does FDLE decide on which items law enforcement should submit beyond a sexual assault kit?
Yes, all of that information is found within the evidence submission policy. However, every case scenario is different, and just having a conversation between the supervisors at FDLE and that submitting agency, additional items can be submitted.
Is it you requesting the additional items of evidence, or does law enforcement decide on which items of evidence to submit?
It's a mixture of both. In this case, with the sexual assault evidence kit not giving DNA results foreign to the victim, I will automatically add a segment in the report requesting additional evidence. But it depends on the type of scenario. Sometimes we don't automatically put that in, and the agency themselves can reach out and see if they can submit some more evidence.
And Ms. O'Neill, did you analyze any other evidence in this case?
No, I did not.
Your Honor, may I have a moment?
Absolutely.
We'll pass the witness.
All right, cross-examination. Mr. Summers.
Yes, thank you. Hello, Ms. Montgomery.
Good morning.
Good morning. let me just ask you a few things about your process. Are you told when the samples are collected that are sent to you?
Sometimes I am. Typically, if I get a sexual assault evidence kit, it may contain information sheets that tell me when the items are collected, but generally speaking, I don't necessarily get the exact date that they're collected.
Okay. In this case, on the sexual assault kit, were you given any specific dates of when this was collected?
May I refer to my notes?
Yes.
Based on the information sheets, the kit was collected on March 13th of 2017.
Okay. And when the samples are collected, does it really matter when they're collected?
The time frame definitely can matter. Typically, the longer between the alleged incident and the time of collection, the longer that time period is, the more likely for any DNA that was deposited to be degraded. So if we're collecting from different orifices of the body, the fluids within those orifices can start to break down any foreign DNA that's there. So over time, you may come to a point where there's not enough for detection.
Okay. I asked you a similar question in our deposition about how long DNA is around. Do you remember what your answer was for that?
I do not remember what my answer specifically was in that case, but DNA, depending on where it's deposited, how it's preserved, it can last indefinitely. However, like I said, if it's something from an orifice of the body, it can degrade a little bit faster than something that was deposited, let's say, on a piece of fabric that was preserved in good temperature, good humidity, no weather, etc.
Okay. In the sexual assault kit, can you tell me again what items were tested?
Yes, the vaginal swabs, cervical swabs, external genitalia swabs, the right hand fingernail scrapings, the left hand fingernail scrapings, buccal swabs, underwear, and a hair from the underwear.
Okay, and none of those yielded any results that indicated myself?
I did not take, I would say the hair from the underwear, I did take through the full DNA process and did not obtain a foreign DNA profile. And then the other items, I did not take through that process completely.
Okay, so your answer is that it did not indicate me in any of the results?
I didn't obtain any DNA profiles foreign to be used for any kind of comparison to your DNA profile.
Okay. On the next items that you tested, there were most of those items were fabric material?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And the only item that was from me was the sheet cutting?
There was a DNA profile that matched your DNA profile from the sheet cutting as well as the swab from front driver's seat.
Right. But the only fabric item was the sheet cutting?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And that sheet cutting could have had a DNA sample on it from me over a long period of time?
Yes, my testing cannot say when DNA is deposited on an item, so those DNA, that mixture could have been deposited at any point.
Okay. And so none of the DNA results tell you when they were placed on the samples that you test?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Redirect.
Briefly, Can showering or urinating affect the collection of evidence that could potentially provide sperm or semen?
Yes, it can. Showering could wash away some of the DNA or all of the DNA present to a point where it's not detected within the type of testing that I perform, as well as urination that may come in contact with an area of the body that had foreign DNA deposited on it and rinse that away as well.
What about basic gravity? A female standing up after having intercourse?
Yes, gravity as well. If there was foreign DNA deposited in the vaginal cavity, then standing up, those fluids can be released from the vaginal cavity via gravity.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
And this witness be released by the state
Yes.
and released by the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. You may be released as a witness at this time. You're welcome. I'll ask the state to please call their next witness.
Calls Jacob Becker. Detective Watson.
Detective Watson. Oops.